Welcome to the latest edition of the LL Basketball Roundtable, brought to you by Student Transportation of America, which we are in favor of. We're in favor of transporting students, I think. My name is Mike Gross, and I'll be hosting. To my left is Jason Guarente, who covers boys basketball for LNP, LancasterOnline.com. And to my right is the Rhines, ditto for the girls' side. We're roughly halfway through the regular season, maybe a hair beyond that even. So we thought it was maybe time to take a quick look at the district playoff power rankings, give a little bit of sense of how that shapes up, and maybe some things that are coming up on the horizon as well. So let's go class by class, and we'll go boys and girls. So Jason, let's start with Class A. We have high seeds, not LL, but high seeds.
Class A, yeah. Linville Hill Christian, the two-time defending district champs. They look like the favorites. They are just pounding the other teams
they're really routing
in their conference. Number 2 is Ephrata Mennonite.
Which is a school I had never heard of before looking at those power ratings today.
They play, I think, 12 or 13 games. They're 6-1, but they're in that same conference with Linville. I think the LL team in that bracket is Lancaster Country Day, which is around 7. They did play Linville early on Linville's home court, and they were ahead at half, and then Linville took control in the second half. So maybe they could make a run at it. But, I mean, it seems like Linville's a big favorite there.
Yeah, and they lost some key pieces from a team that had a great year a year ago and don't seem to have dropped off that much, at least relative to the Class A competition. Girls.
A lot of single A girls in the county for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of similar. It's similar. Yeah,
yes, and the top is interesting. Veritas Academy's 1, Linville Hill is 2, two-time reigning champ Mount Calvary Christian is 4. And they're all going to play each other here.
And Lancaster County Christian is 3.
There's
top 4.
That's pretty impressive. Veritas was supposed to play Mount Calvary. It got snowed out, so they're going to play next week. But this coming Monday is a really cool game. Veritas at Linville Hill. The top 2 teams are going to play on Monday night, so I'm hoping to check that out. Hopefully it doesn't snow again. But tons of Lancaster County talent in 1A.
AA, defending state champion Lancaster Mennonite. Go, big guy.
They're the top seed. They're by a big margin. They're 10-3, but they've won 10 of their last 11, and their losses are just much bigger schools than you'll see in Class 2A bracket. Only 4 make it, so you only have to win 2 to be district champs. Wow. I mean, I would think Mennonite's a pretty sizable
Halifax is the 2 seed. They are 11-2. One of their losses is to Lancaster County Christian.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, they have not played a great schedule, and like the public school, the recognizable public schools that they've played are having bad years. So I mean, it looks like Mennonite there.
Same thing. 4 and 2A go in girls. Mennonites 2 and Lancaster Country Day is 4. Mennonite lost to Millersburg in last year's final. Millersburg is number 1 again.
And they're 13-2. They
good.
Must be pretty legit.
Yeah, they're legit. They already beat Mennonite in a non-league game. Mennonite got off to that great start, and they've kind of hit a snag here around mid-season. Country Day's only played less than 10 games, so Country Day's got a lot of games coming up. We'll see maybe if they can jump to the 3 line. But Mennonite and Country Day, knock on glass, they could make that bracket.
AAA boys, Trinity, the number 1 seed. That's so rare.
Really?
Yeah.
Trinity?
They're 10-2. It's a good Trinity team. They have a guard who is probably a Division I player. But anyway, our teams are there.
Columbia. Columbia is the only LL contender, really. Pequea Valley 7. They could sneak into the field, but Columbia is 3rd in the power ratings. They're going to have to deal with Trinity and DeLone Catholic. I believe 3 make it out of the state, so they have a good chance to do that, but they're going to have to find a way. Trinity seems like a big favorite. They're really pulling away in the power ratings. Yeah. Columbia's had some hiccups lately. They lost to Lancaster Catholic last week.
That was a shock to me.
They were up big early, 18 points early, and then they couldn't hold that lead, and they lost to Berlin Brothers Valley, which is a state power. So they had a long winning streak before those back-to-back losses, so we'll see. Columbia's big game this week is they're at Mennonite, which is for really section.
Oh, wow.
That's
the big one. That's
the big section for first place for now, at least.
Well, we know not much to say about AAA runs.
AAA girls. LL has 1, 2, 3. Lancaster Catholic at the top. Pequea Valley jumped Columbia. They're 2. Columbia's 3. Columbia's hit kind of a funky patch here. They're still undefeated in league play, but they had a couple of tough losses. They lost to that Goretti team out of Maryland. They lost to DeLone Catholic, which is not a horrible
Yeah,
loss.
those aren't so bad. But I think it's fair to say they have not, given the talent they have and their usual standard, they haven't been great. They haven't been great.
No, and they'll find it. And because I think they're done with their non-league stuff. So they're going to play mostly Section 4 games from here on out. Catholic's the defending champ. I had forgot. Catholic won its 20th district title last year, tied the Beavers for most in District 3 history.
And the Beavers aren't adding to that.
They're done. They're stuck on 20 forever.
Drive by that building, there's nothing happening there.
Yeah, so if Catholic can defend, they'll get the most district championships in District 3 history.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
That's
I
interesting.
didn't think of that. Yeah,
with the 3 teams there, and Columbia and Pequea Valley are 1-2 in Section 4. They were supposed to play Tuesday. It got snowed out. They're going to play in February. A lot to be decided in the sections, obviously, but Catholic's got to be your favorite there. They're playing lights out.
4A, Berks Catholic has been really impressive, undefeated, #1 seed. But we've got #2, Jason.
Berks Catholic's the only undefeated team in District 3.
Wow, how about that?
Snip Esterly got his 800th win, the coach of
That's
Berks.
crazy.
That's
crazy.
incomprehensible total.
Although it seems like he's been coaching for a gazillion years. But you're right. They so consistent.
800.
So
That's
consistent.
40-20 win season.
Yeah.
You know.
That's unbelievable. Think about that.
But #2 is Octorara, which is the first place team in Section 3. They just got it handed to them by Constitution at their MLK showcase over the weekend. But they seem like they played Berks Catholic and they lost handily. So their 2 losses are to Constitution and Berks Catholic. But they seem like the #2 team in that bracket. They have a really good chance to make states.
There you go.
But the thing about Octorara is they kind of play on a razor's edge. I mean, they barely beat Elko. They've had some real close calls. So we'll see going down the stretch, the second half of that Section 3 schedule, if they can hold on, because you also have Lampeter Strasburg in there, and they're the team that always wins section titles, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah. And a couple of years ago, won a district title.
4A. There's not a ton of LLs here in 4A. Northern Lebanon is the team. I think they're 3rd here midweek.
They are 3rd. They are
behind
12-2.
YO.
Obviously, DeLone is in that.
DeLone is there. DeLone had its first loss over the weekend. They lost to Westtown.
That doesn't count.
That probably shouldn't count. Yeah. And YO's there. They're undefeated.
It literally doesn't count for the power rating.
No, it does
If you look
not.
on there, they have them undefeated.
Yeah, and YO's undefeated, and they're the defending champ. Northern Lebanon's right there at #3. Vikes have 12 wins, most in the LL. They've been really good. I'm going to see them
12-2.
this week. They've been good. Not a ton of size, a lot of spunky little guard types who run around and defend. But they should be pretty safe for that 3 line. They got to play Lancaster Catholic
They should change
again.
their name from Vikings to funky little guard
Funky,
types.
yeah. And they're so young. 4 sophomores and a junior start.
If you take nothing else away from this video, take that away. Funky little guard types.
Funky, yeah. Northern Lebanon's tricky. They will be heard from in that bracket, but YO and DeLone they're the class of that bracket now. Yes.
5A, the Barons.
Yeah,
lead
Manheim
the way.
Central, #1 seed.
Are they really?
How about that?
They're 12-1. They're lost to Ephrata on the road. Ephrata is a tough place to play. They get a good crowd there, and it is loud. They bounced back from that with several good wins in a row.
Yeah, they have played well since then. I've noticed that. Yeah.
Nice.
And they have a game against Warwick at home tonight. So by the end of tonight, we'll have a much better idea of how Section 2 will shake out. Also in that bracket is LS, which walloped Chambersburg by more than 20 points, one of the most surprising results of last weekend.
Yeah.
And then you have Warwick at 13, and you say, oh, well, if you're at 13, how can you be a contender? But if Warwick plays Manheim Central tonight, there's no clear favorite there. So the gap between 1 and 13 is not very large.
And also 14 get in.
14 get in. They're on the
So
bubble.
It's a very
so
big field.
biggest
yeah.
bracket.
They'll have to, they don't have much margin for error to get in, but I think Warwick will get in because I think they have some wins in their section. So there's not a big gap there. You also have Hershey and Mechanicsburg, who are the next 2 after Manheim Central. Both teams have LL ties, right? Paul Blackburn, the Lebanon coach, is now at Hershey, and Mike Gaffey, we talked about last week at
Two excellent coaches, and
yeah.
those teams will be tough outs.
Yeah, that'll be a fun
In
tournament.
that field, those teams will be tough outs. Yeah.
5A girls. Manheim Central is the highest of the seeds right now. What are they? 6,
The highest seed we
5?
have is #9.
#9.
Yikes.
Yeah, Barons. And let me drop the names again. Gianna Walders, Lila Walders, and Maddie Gaiman, 3 freshmen for Mannheim Central, and they're all good players for ninth graders, and they're only going to get better. So
Fab Three.
Fab Three. Remember the names: Walters, Gaiman. Barons have a good game here midweek against Warwick. Is a big game in the Section 2 race. But they're probably your best bet in 5A, because a lot of those 5A teams are kind of in rebuild mode, the E-Towns, the Solenkos, et cetera. So keep an eye on the Barons, especially for the next 3.5 years.
6A, I think on both the boys and girls side, it's usually pretty open. Now, we had a gigantic exception with Reading in recent years, which does not seem to be there anymore. But it looks like it's gettable for a lot of people.
Yeah, it seems like, well, Cedar Crest is the LL's best team in 6A. They look like the favorites. They're starting to separate, I think, a little bit from the pack.
Won 8 in a row.
They've won 8 in a row, and they had a sluggish start, but they also had a lot of football players, so I'm wondering if it just took them some time. They didn't play all fall.
It was the problem was offensively, so that makes you think maybe that was indeed the case. Yeah.
And they also have the kind of team that wins in districts. They're big, they share the ball, they play defense, they can shoot the three. A lot of times you have a 6A team that can't compete, it's because they're not big enough. Well, that's not the problem with Cedar Crest. So if Cumberland Valley is the favorite at 1, then I think the bottom half of the bracket, there's probably 5 or 6 teams who could come out of that half and get to the final. I think Cedar Crest could get to the district final. Also from the LL in that bracket is Hempfield at 9. Hempfield's beaten some really good teams. They beat Wilson, they beat Muhlenberg. So I think on any given day, their best day, they can beat somebody. So they would be dangerous. But on their worst day, they're not so good either. So it could go either way. And then Penn Manor's on the bubble. They're trying to get in. They're at 12.
6A, we have some definite contenders, apparently. And
no
even
doubt.
even if the power rating doesn't quite reflect it.
Yeah, Lebanon for sure, and they've really caught fire. They've won 11 in a row. Kyla Correa, in her last 7 games, she scored 20 or more.
But they're only the 6th seed.
They're only the 6th. Their schedule's a little funky. They played Hershey in a non-league, and they don't have a win. But again, second time around here, they're going to play Crest, they're going to play Hempfield, they're going to play Township. So that they may jump up a couple of spots.
And Township is 7.
And Township's right there as well. Friday night, Lebanon at Mannheim Township, and that'll be for first place in Section 1. Huge game there. It'll affect the power ratings. Effort is also there in that group in 6A, I believe, and they lost their 10-game winning streak last week, but they're playing well. It's funny, when I've talked to some of my old Mid-Penn friends, I'll say, what do you think, LL, who's there? And they've all said Lebanon. They said, we have 6As, we have our eyes on Lebanon. Dallas Town's there at the top of that bracket. They're undefeated.
They're number 1.
I saw Central Dauphin live, and they defend like crazy. Don't be surprised if CD is there. Seems like it. They have a big and a bunch of guards who just hound you.
Good overall size, athletic.
They have a
defense.
point. I think CD could be there. But Lebanon, Township, Ephrata, especially with Lebanon. Lebanon's playing really great right now. Keep an eye on the Cedars.
Okay, we're speaking to you on a Wednesday. We're going into a big weekend. Friday, we have a couple of really big, assuming weather permitting, we have a couple of really big games on both sides. So let's talk about Friday. What are you doing on Friday, Jason?
Well, you're going to Cedar Crest.
I am going to Cedar
Hempfield,
Crest at Hempfield.
which I think is the biggest game, because if Cedar Crest wins, I think the section race is over. They would be up 2.
It's going to be tough. Yeah.
And they would have 2 wins over Hempfield. So
And it's in Landisville.
It's in
on the
Landisville.
road.
The first time in Lebanon, Cedar Crest won by 19.
Whoa.
So the interesting thing is, if Hempfield wins now, they're both 5-1, and it's anybody's race with 4 to play.
Really changes everything. Yeah.
But if Cedar Crest wins, they're the clear favorites. But then Hempfield falls back into that 2-3 loss muddle with Mannheim Township and Penn Manor, which are trying to get into the league playoffs. So it's going to be a big pendulum swing in the race. And then also that night, Columbia's at Mennonite, which we talked about, which the games between those 2 will decide who's 1 and who's 2 out of Section 4 for the league playoffs.
Yeah,
Those are big boy games.
Yeah, and let's quickly go through the Mid-Penn LL shootout, which is Saturday at Mannheim Central. Let's go through those.
5 games starting at noon. Columbia is the first game. Mannheim Central is the last game. LL Powers against Mid-Penn Powers. A good chance to see how the league stacks up against, maybe the best basketball conference in District 3. Penn Manor will be there. Ethan Benny is 52 points from 1,000.
Nice.
He didn't play. They didn't play yesterday, obviously, so he might not be close enough. But he could be close enough to get to the milestone there, depending how the rest of the week goes.
Nice.
Rhymes, what's happening?
Friday night's the big one, as
Friday night's the
mentioned.
big one, yeah.
Lebanon at Township. They're both 4-1. Somebody gets sole possession of first. Township won at Lebanon back in December, which caught everybody's attention. As mentioned, Lebanon's really caught fire, and they found it. I saw them twice last week, and they are just playing great. Tons of balance, bigs.
Township's pretty good.
Correa. Township's good.
Township's legitimate.
And after they got a loss to who beat them in section, Hempfield, when they coughed up the 18-point second half lead, they found it again. They've won 4 in a row. Let's mention, you mentioned 1,000 with Benny. Ava Byrne, Manheim Township senior, she needs 12 points. Intriguing game for Township on Thursday. They play Ephrata in a non-league. Ephrata's in first in section 2, Township's in first in section 1. That's an interesting matchup. Byrne needs 12, so she'll probably get it. Thursday, Riley Kraft, senior at Catholic, needs 50 points, 5-0.
5-0.
So that's like 4 or 5 games next week sometime.
That's it, gang.
Yeah, Miss Kraft should get 1,000. There you go.
All right, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
That's it. Lots and lots of hoops.
Oh.
This has been the LL Basketball Roundtable, brought to you by Student Transportation of America. For Mike, for Jason, for Jeff. See ya.